Hey guys, and welcome to the session. Today I want to discuss context managers from a really simple point of view. You may have seen these with a with open block, so you might have something that looks like this, like with open, you've got some stuff, and then maybe you've got some code underneath that's doing something. So you tend to see context managers used a little bit like this here. So let's go over what they actually do, why they're useful. I'll do a quick kind of simple demonstration looking at a file here, which is this one. Then I'll show you a custom class which implements methods to allow it to be used with a context manager. So first of all, let's just discuss kind of what they do. So suppose we have some code which says with open, we've got maybe some stuff here as ABC. Let's do a tab and then do some dots like this. So whenever you see something like this, this is basically implementing a context manager. And generally we're opening a file, maybe we're opening a connection, opening a thread, opening something to connect to a database. It could be a number of things that we're doing here. Just suppose we keep it simple. Imagine this is opening a file. So we're saying with some file, let's open, do some stuff here. Maybe we read from it, maybe we write to it. This finishes, and then finally the code exits this indented section and comes down to line 12, and we move on, and we're all happy. This bit here, which is indented, something special is actually happening. And what's happening is Python's opening a file inside what's called a context. So when we enter the context and exit the context, things are happening automatically for us. Specifically, we're actually calling this enter and exit magic methods, or dunder methods, however you want to say them. And these do things for us automatically behind the scenes, and we don't have to worry about calling these ourselves because the context manager is doing it for us. Actually, whenever you do the with open section, we're actually calling enter here. So imagine enter being called here. And this exit one, imagine as soon as we leave this indented block, exit is being called here. So quite a lot of the time, dunder methods are often called for us by things like operators or certain built-in functions. The with open statement sort of does the same thing. Enter is called at the top, exit is called at the bottom. And effectively, the job of these two things here, they kind of work hand in hand. Enter generally opens a resource for us. So it might be opening a file, returning a file object or whatever. That's generally done here. The exit is where I think the magic comes in with a context manager. In the context of opening a file, exit will close the file for you, meaning that it's safe for other things on your computer to then go ahead and use it. It's not very common, but suppose you're working with a file. So suppose I did file equals open. I'll tell you what, I'll use my file here. So that's called myfile .txt, and we will do print file.read like this. We'll run our code and see what we get, and we get hello, and that's fine. But the problem with this approach is that we have to actually go ahead and close the file. So we don't have to do something like file.close here, which is fine. You know, it's not the end of the world. But if you're doing some complex operations to your file, and let's suppose you raise an exception, like imagine this was an API call. An API is coming in, it's opening a file, we're doing some stuff. Suddenly we raise an exception, meaning that this doesn't get called. Sometimes that can be quite problematic. It means that we aren't properly closing the file. So using a context manager effectively ensures that this is done without you having to worry at all about it. You know, you can call it ourselves here and that's fine, but if we use with open, if the block finish is fine, this is called. If an exception is raised within the with open block, this is called anyway. So it just makes more sense in my view to use a with open block, and actually quite easy to do. So you basically have to do this. So we will say with open my file as I don't know, file, and then we'll just say print file.read like this here. So we'll clear the screen, we will hit run again, and there we go, that's it. Maybe I raise let's do a value error. Okay, so even with this being raised here, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that this has happened here. This file will still be getting closed because as soon as this indented block exits and we come down to line 12, the exit method is going to be called. That file is closed. this file can then be handed back. So if you're fairly new to Python and you're used to reading files just by doing like file equals open, then file.close, I would try and get into the habit of using these context managers. It just encourages your code to be a bit safer. So if you can get into the habit of using these from kind of early on in your Python career as possible, the better. Now then, what I want to do, I want to bring in some code which actually implements these here, just to show you a bit behind the scenes as to what context managers actually do. So I'll bring this in now. And here's an example class here. So I've imported time. I have a timer class, and this implements two dunder methods. We have enter and we have exit here. Now, what's interesting about exit is check out all of these kind of various little inputs we can have here. We'll look at a couple of these to see kind of what they do and why they're important. But let me just show you kind of what's going on. So if I did with timer, no, not like that, there we go. As timer, and let's just do pass just for a second. Let's just run this code again. So see what happened there? So when I did this bit here, with timer as timer, effectively this is calling the enter dunder method. Like if I suppose didn't have this for a second, there we go. So without this, this can't be used in like the context manager protocol. Even tells us here, yeah, it doesn't support the context manager protocol. That's because we need enter. So with enter coming along here, we can see that the following happens. We set time.time, so we have the current time. We print timer started, so we should see the time kick off. There it is, looks good. We have to make sure that we return self, because this is used inside the with block here. And then finally we can see timer stopped, elapsed time 0.0 seconds. That's because nothing's happened like inside a block to actually, make some time elapse. Now the exit, you can see this print statement happened down here. That's because as soon as we got down to line 29, the block finished, which meant the exit was called automatically, which meant we then called this. So in short, this bit calls as enter, and exiting the block called exit here. What we might want to do is do, let's do for blank in range, let's say, to try and do a fairly big number. Let's do, actually no, we'll keep pass just at this here. We'll try and make it tick up a little bit. Okay, yeah, elapsed time 0.2 seconds, cool. So at the moment, that all looks fine, but what if something happened here? So some untoward event happens which makes an error take place. Would this fire automatically? Well, let's find out. So let's do, let me change this from an underscore to an I, because I'm actually using the value. Let's say if I is equal to this, let's kick off this here. Raise a value error like this here, and we'll get rid of that. Okay, so before I kick this off, I want to kind of bring your attention to this here. This can be true or false, and the difference is quite big. So if this returns false, it's going to propagate any exception. The propagate exception basically means that if something happens in the context of this being open, so an error gets raised, it's going to make it known to us. If it's true, it's not. So let me do return true. Let me kick this off. Okay, so timer started, timer stopped, but we raised a value error, so why didn't that happen? That's because it's true. Kick it into false, and there we go. So this is quite important, and I guess it's up to you, and I guess it depends on like what your class is doing. So depending on whether this is true or false, will determine if your exception's actually propagated back. So what you can do, let me just do, I just do this here. Let me try and do something. Can I do if exception type? Let's say print an error. We'll make this into an F string. Let me just show you kind of what actually happens here, because there's quite a few things being passed. I'll show you exec type. And let's clear the screen and hit this here. So let's see what happened. Timer started, we enter the block. This kicked off and raised like an artificial error with oops, and we see timer stopped. So that means, yep, fine, cool. We've propagated the error. We've come outside of the context, and that's fine. And yeah, we can see an error, class, value error. I think we can do name, access this attribute, and it should tell us a bit nicer. Yeah, we have a value error. Let's also try something else. Let's do some dashes here, and let's do exec value. We'll run that again. And we can see we get oops here as well. So these two, in my view, are like the important ones here. Now, one thing that's important to note here is the order which things have happened. The timer started because we entered the block here, so that's where this guy has started. We raised an error like in the middle of this context being open, but then we got timer stopped. So let's see where this is here. That's this. And then we get the error propagated out. So that's where like the cleanup would happen. So if you imagine this is like handling a file, this might be opening the file here. This could be closing the file here. If this was dealing with a real life file, it would close the file first and then propagate the error. And I think that's what makes this really powerful. And I guess something to bear in mind as well, if you're building a custom class that deals with opening and closing files, it's definitely worth looking at how to implement enter and exit, because it can make dealing with files a whole lot safer. So yeah, a bit of a shorter video this week. It's been a fairly busy week in work. We've got an awful lot on, so I appreciate it is a shorter video. But I think context managers are something definitely worth knowing about. If you use them in a certain way or a specific way or a way that's kind of quirky, feel free to ping us a comment. I'd love to hear how you guys use them. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you all in the next video.